That's like telling a whole town, sorry, you can't have insurance.
Pinal County was the only county in the country that had no Obamacare coverage next year until last week. But Arizonans still have few choices. Just one of Arizona's 15 counties will offer residents more than one choice of health insurers on the Obamacare exchange next year. And that includes Maricopa County, where 128,000 people now insured under Obamacare will have just one choice. As we said earlier, John McCain hitting Ann Kirkpatrick hard on Obamacare, which she supported, over insurers bailing out here in Arizona. It kind of feels like the run up to the 2010 elections when this was a red hot issue. Chip, does this still have the potency today it had back then?
It's not as intense as the 2010 cycle, but the way this is playing out with insurers pulling out of various counties, not just in Arizona, but all over the country, couldn't be playing out worse for, say, an Ann Kirkpatrick or Democrats. You know, President Obama promised more choices, more competition. They thought this would probably be a neutral issue, but now I think especially for John McCain and Republicans, they can use that Obamacare vote against Ann Kirkpatrick. And I'm not saying it's fair, but it's politics, and it's going to hurt Democrats and I think propel John McCain to another seat in the U.S. Senate.
Not many federal races on the ballot this year, but we do have two other congressional races. Congresswoman Martha McSally, Republican, against Democrat Matt Hines down in the 2nd District in southern Arizona, and Tom O'Halloran, Democrat, against Republican Paul Babu in the 1st District. Will O'Halloran and Hines be defending themselves from this?
Look, Hines is a doctor, so if you want to send someone to D.C. to actually fix Obamacare, you send someone like him. And McSally only won by a few hundred votes in a year where Republicans overwhelmingly won on the ballot. And O'Halloran's a trusted name up north, and I think that he's running against a very flawed Republican candidate. So I think for Democrats, those are two seats we could win.
How does Obamacare play in those races? You think Hines could run a good defense?
I think Hines has a definite advantage.
What about O'Halloran, who's a former Republican, a former independent, who's now a Democrat?
Which probably makes his electorate trust him. They've sent him to the state legislature before. Look, here's the thing about O'Halloran. He's running against a candidate who has major flaws. I don't think that Obamacare is going to be the major issue in that race. And I think that Obamacare really was just a proxy to hate Obama. I think it's probably lost some of that steam. And I think O'Halloran's going to run against Babu, and I think that'll be enough.
I would have said 2 weeks ago it probably wouldn't be a big deal, but in Pinal County, with all the publicity about insurers pulling out, I think that could play a role in, you know, Babu against O'Halloran.
That's in the 1st District.
Yeah.
For employers, when does your next year's health insurance premium information come out? When do we find out that our premiums are going?
That's a great question, because for the exchange, it comes out November 1st.
Yeah.
And that's around the time many voters who are insured under Obamacare are going to find out their choices.
But open enrollment
for next year.
Also for those of us
a week before the election.
Right.
For those of us who aren't on the exchanges, though, open enrollment comes right around that same time, and that's when we all get that sticker shock of how much our premiums are going up. That's going to be uppermost in people's minds, their own pocketbooks.
Okay, but we know that most voters are voting early and they're mailing in their ballots. And those who actually go to the polls between the 1st and the 8th are actually voters who tend to be Democrats, right? They're folks who still go into the polls, whereas your typical conservative voter is actually mailing in their ballot more often than not here. So I don't think that window of time is going to sink any ship. I think that you got to look at the other issues that will be running the campaign.
I'm not working on these campaigns, but I see a lot of mailers in the future about rising premiums, rising co-pays. That could be very effective in a close race. So I think we'll have to see how it plays out.
But I think it mostly affects Kirkpatrick. The other two didn't really have anything to do with it.
Yeah.
That clip that you hear over and over again, it's probably about the only thing people know about Kirkpatrick besides her cowboy boots, that it's the vote she was most proud of. I think that comes back to haunt her.
Yeah.
All right, great discussion. When we come back, a new poll shows 50% of Arizona voters back legalizing marijuana. But the fight has yet to begin. Stay with us.